The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Herod the Tetrarch had heard about all that was being done by Jesus, and he was puzzled because some people were saying that John had risen from the dead, others that Elijah had reappeared, and still others that one of the ancient prophets had come back to life. But Herod said, "John, I beheaded him. So who is this I hear such reports about?" And he was anxious to see Jesus. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, we're celebrating Republic Day today, and the readings that the good Lord has chosen are mysterious and wondrous, to say the least. So we have the book of Ecclesiastes, which is a book written in the intertestamental time, so it's written about 200 years before the birth of Christ. And the book is taking a very long view of things. You know, when you stand on the earth and you look around you, you see every leaf, you see the ant, you see the butterfly, you see the bird that is chirping, you see the people that are moving around. If you were to go up at the top of Fort George and look back at the city, or in San Fernando Hill and look back at the town, you will see something different. The people will look smaller, the scale would be different, and you would start to see things from a whole different perspective. Go up into a helicopter 10,000 feet. You see it real different again. Go up into a jet 35,000 feet, you can't even see hills. All you're seeing is the expanse. And what Kohelet is doing is taking us to a vision of humanity and a vision of what we do, and looking at it from the perspective of eternity, or from the perspective of God, or from the sun, if you would like, because nothing is new under the sun. And from this very far perspective, he's asking the question about the value of the things that we sweat over so much on a daily basis, and asking what is the real value of these things that we sweat over. What's the real value of them? Today he's talking from the creation, and he says, well, you know, the sunrise, only to go back to this place. The wind, it comes from the southward, it turns north, it comes back again where it was. The rivers, all the rivers are flowing into the sea never fills up. So from the value of eternity, what is the value of the things that we sweat over, the things that we really agonize over, the things that we seem so important to us on the daily basis as a republic in Trinidad and Tobago? You know, not too long ago, we had a lot of sweat and toil and confusion over a single day, one day. The day came, the day ended, and we continued on our business. And what was all the toil and sweat and angst about? What was it all about? It was about a simple but very profound exercise of democracy in the country. Who will govern the country? That's what it was about, ultimately. But what was this sweat and toil about? Oh, that was about something different. The sweat and toil, the angst, the anxiety, and all of the animosity and all the emotions erupting was about what access will I have to the patrimony of the country. That's different. And that sweat, that toil, and that angst in our nation is what is destroying us right now. What access do I have to the patrimony of the nation? You see, if you belong to the tribe that wins, oh, you beat your breast and you say, well, it's we time now, I have access. If you belong to the tribe that loses, you start to feel a tabanka, and you start to feel you have no access. And so you get angry and all kinds of emotions start to emerge. And we've been doing this for the last many, many years, you know, oscillating who has access now and who has access then. But what is the real angst? What is the real challenge that we're facing? Well, from the helicopter view, this one come, this one go. This one go, this one come. From the helicopter view. From the view on the earth, it makes a difference to how people feel, to how they experience themselves participating in this great nation and republic. It makes a difference to how people experience themselves, either having an identity and a connection with the republic or not. And the real challenge that we're facing in this oscillating cycle of racism that we have. You know, we have an outbreak, an epidemic and an outbreak of racism every 5 years or so. You know that. And then it calms down again, and for the next couple years after that, you know, we live together and everybody eating everybody food and drinking together and liming together. You know how that is. But the outbreak is because of something that is really, on the one hand, viscerally important for the citizen, and on the other hand, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. And we have to be able to see both perspectives. You see, back in the early 1800s, when we had slaves in this society, and plantations in this society, and free-coloreds who were being discriminated against by the white planters, back in those days when the children of the slaves and the free-coloreds could not be educated, there was a strife and there was an anger and there was an anxiety over the patrimony of the nation that played itself out in all sorts of incredible tensions. And as the laws changed and slavery was abolished, and then the plantation system and slavery itself was dismantled, then we went a new struggle of land and of how we will upkeep people. And then we brought in a large group from India. And now we had another struggle between two groups of people who came here by very different means, but neither of them in really great circumstances. And as you forward this film through, in fast forward, through the years that pass, and as you see the uprisings of the late 1800s, and all the tensions around the African and East Indian, and as we forward through to the 1900s and we see the tensions around the labor riots with Buzz Butler, the tensions have been the same tensions. Forward it now to 1970, it's the same tension. Forward it to 2020, it's the same tension. And the tension is a tension about justice. It's about having equal access to the goods and services of the nation, and every creed and race having an equal place in this twin island republic we call Trinidad and Tobago. And that's what the striving is about. And that's what the angst is about. And that's what we are in tensions around. I want to name something, and I want you to contemplate this on this Republic Day. Do we really have a racial problem in Trinidad and Tobago? Or do we have a problem of people feeling excluded from the national patrimony because of a flawed election system and a flawed way of choosing a government? And I want us to contemplate that. Because the way that we do elections with the first past the post system, the way that we choose a government and who will rule us, causes tensions every single time we do it. Even England, who gave us the system, has evolved the system to include people based on the number of votes that they got. Even they have evolved the system, but we have stayed to a system back in the 1960s. If we are a republic, and this republic is to move forward, we have to evolve the very structures that hold the republic together. We have to evolve the way that we relate and interact in the most fundamental system of choosing a government. And until we evolve that, the tensions of race, of class, of creed are going to continue because people are going to continue to feel as if they are left out, or as if they are ostracized, or as if they are made to be a victim. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, one perspective. But on the earth and on the ground, when you feel that you have not had your fair share of the natural and national resources, you know how that feels. It feels different. The role of a government is to ensure the just and equal distribution of the goods of a society, to ensure that the most vulnerable have what they need, and to also ensure that the whole society has what it needs for human flourishing. That's the role of government. It's not so that one tribe could have their hands on a pie while the other tribe sucking salt. Only to change it 5 years after, and the next tribe get their hands on the pie and the next one sucking salt. That's not what democracy is about. We have an incredible nation. We have called ourselves a republic, one of 6 nations in the world to leave the crown and say that we are not only independent, but we are sovereign state in our own right, with our own head of state. And now we have to grow. We have to grow this republic into a new place where just distribution of the resources of our nation becomes a watchword of the republic, so that those who are most to the fringe of our society receive what they need to flourish as human beings. When the society is divided up the way ours is, and when you have the levels of injustice that our society still has, then the explosions that we experience and the eruptions that we experience will continue and continue and continue. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. The same explosions and interactions that we had in the early 1800s, the same ones we had with the Jose riots, the water riots, with the labor riots, with 1970 and the Black Power movement. It's the same explosions that we've had for the very same reason. Back then, we didn't chart our own destiny. Today, we are a republic. Nobody outside of us determines the kind of structure and the kind of nation we are. Nobody outside of us does that. We are a republic. And that has a grave responsibility for it. And when the laws of a nation no longer serve the benefit and the good of the citizenry, there is a need for reform, and that need for reform and the time for it has come. And without that, the vanity of vanities, of the circular nature of the explosions and eruptions of injustice will continue. In our gospel reading, we have Jesus here being seen in a very puzzling way by Herod. So Luke doesn't narrate the beheading of John, but what he has is this text where Herod is asking, who is this man? Who is this man? Well, the man was a puzzle, because some people were saying, well, he is John the Baptist, risen from the dead. Well, you could imagine King Herod, who had John the Baptist put to death. You could imagine the angst he feels if he could actually believe that John comes back from the dead. Well, that would be the horror of horrors for King Herod. Or Elijah. Well, if the king understood the Bible, he would be more horrified at Elijah coming back from the dead than John coming back from the dead. Because Elijah was the one who went to his king at the time, Ahab, and said, there will be no rain in this country because of your idolatry. Goodbye. And shut the heavens for 3 years. And there was no rain, and a famine really dealt with the nation, a heavy, heavy blow, until Elijah came back and allowed the rain to fall through God's intervention again. These men that are being cited here, these figures that are being cited here, are figures of immense importance in the life of Israel, because they played a role within the nation state to keep the nation towards two things. Towards keeping God as first in the nation, and second, ensuring that justice flowed between people. And the prophets understood that there was a direct relationship between idolatry, which is removing God from the place God should be, and injustice, which is trampling on the poor. And the prophets all understood. Elijah, Amos, Isaiah, everyone understood that once you move the gaze from God and from the perspective of God, you also move the gaze from justice and the perspective of treating people right within society. And when Herod is anxious to meet Jesus, and Jesus is cast as John the Baptist, Elijah, or one of the prophets come back to life, he would have been a terrifying figure. And here's the thing. What the prophets have and what they do is they keep the vantage point or their view from the perspective of eternity. That's what they do. You see, if you keep your vantage point from the perspective of here and now, you can think that making money, having pleasure, notoriety, everybody like you, that is the best way of living. You can think that. And that's what Kohelet is saying, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Because where is it going to go? You're going to die and leave it. And then what? Keep your perspective from the perspective of God and eternity. And you understand that acting justly in society has to be the high call. Understand that living with character has to be the high call. Then you understand that keeping God first has to be the high call. And in fact, if you don't put God first, none of the others are going to cascade down and find themselves as anything important into your life. So on this Republic Day, we have these perspectives. The perspective of eternity and the perspective of the vanity of our existence. And we as a nation, as a very, very, very young nation, we have to find the rigor. We have to find the courage. We have to find the imagination to dream of a nation with diversity as we have it. And at the same time, a nation that will be true and fair and just to every one of its citizens, especially those who have been in poverty in a historic way for many generations, especially in the ghettos where we have had poverty that has been systemic, and has created a whole way of seeing the world through poverty, especially in the emerging spaces in central Trinidad where we have shanty towns being growing and building, and especially in this time where there will be shortage because we have to come from our high lifestyle down to something that will be very, very sober. Because the next budget, and the one after that, and the one after that is not going to be the cocktail champagne budgets that we have had in the last couple decades. We have to imagine what justice could look like in this nation state. Not just for those who are of the upper end of the society, but we have to start by imagining what justice looks like for those who have been marginalized and those who have been condemned to systemic poverty. We have to start asking ourselves, what does just distribution of the goods of this society look like for them? And until we are willing to do that, we are not worthy of the status of being a republic. Being a republic has responsibilities, and we have to grow up to our responsibilities. St. Paul says at the end of the day, only three things last: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And to be a great republic, we have to be a people who show love to those who are most in need. And that's what the prophets did. That's what Jesus did. That's what made King Herod tremble when he heard that Jesus was there. And that's what we as a church need to do. Help this nation come to love. But we will only come to that when we keep God as first. Amen.